Welcome everybody to Very Important Geeks, and today we are doing a review and build of the AVA Sneakbox. Sneaky, sneaky. Now, my friend got this for me for my birthday, and it hits all the sweet spots for me. Aluminum build, rotary encoder, 65%, Alice layout. Let's go! Now, taking a look at the keyboard itself, it does feature a 6-degree typing angle, a 12-degree ergonomic chin right here, very nice. You got a nav cluster over here where you can have just 4 macro keys or an encoder as well. You've got the arrow keys over here, and you'll notice that there is no dedicated right shift in this PCB layout. But don't worry, you can program one in QMK or VIA. Now by default, the kit comes with the top and bottom shell of the case, all the screws you're going to need, the silicone feet at the bottom, the brass weight inside, and all the silicone gaskets for the plate. Now the plate is optional and you get your choice of different materials, as is the encoder, that's optional as well. And of course you'll have to choose between a soldered or hot swap PCB and supply your own stabs, switches, and keycaps. Now some people choose not to use stabs everywhere on an Alice layout, but this PCB accepts 5, and if you want to do all of them, then you will need at least 5 2U stabs. Now for me, I like using the Durock V2s, so I had to get 2 sets to get the 5 2U stabs. Now, like I said, keycaps and switches don't come with this purchase, so supply whatever you like. My friend got me the black and white set from Wuque Studios and also the Kraken set with the novelties, which look fantastic. And we also went with the Rama linear duck switches. But for your board, do whatever floats your boat. Also, the kit does come to you in this nice box right here. Wrist rest, also optional. If you want that, comes in a variety of woods and finishes. Now, the first step in any build is to inventory all your parts. Make sure you got everything you ordered and that you have a rough idea of how everything fits together. And the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your PCB right out of the box, use the cable that's applied or use your own cable, and you're gonna test it. Hook it up, make sure all the LEDs work. You can use something like VIA and their key tester or QMK's key tester, and then all you have to do is complete the circuit on each of the switches using something like a tweezer and make sure that everything registers. Because the last thing you want to do is put this all together, plug it up, and realize that there was something wrong with the PCB. And if you're new to building, it's not a bad idea to get a second PCB, just in case you do blow out a hot swap socket trying to push in a switch, or you solder something incorrectly, or who knows. Now that you've tested out your PCB and you've made sure everything functions, go ahead and put that aside and you're going to figure out your stab situation. Go ahead and grab all the parts of the stabs that you're going to need, figure out how they're going to go, and sort of dry fit them on the PCB. Now when you're placing your stabs on the PCB comes configured to accept a whole bunch of different configurations, especially in regards to the spacebar and other keys around the spacebar. So when you're putting your stabs, make sure you are putting them in the right place to accommodate the size spacebar you want and sort of the key format and layout. Now, because I like using the Durock V2, some of these new ones that I've been ordering have come with these sort of stab pads that you can place on the PCB to sort of cushion the bottom out on your stabs. And I highly recommend you put these on before you start lubing stuff, because once you get lube on your fingers or anywhere else, it's gonna make it very hard for these things to adhere. And if you want to take it further and do the holy mod on your stabs, they also include little gaskets as well for you to do that. Then you're going to want to add your switches that go with the stabs and put the keycaps on and just test them out, make sure they're all sounding and feeling right. Now, I've been wanting to try out the Rama Duck switches for a while, so I got those. And there's also a benefit because they are lubed and tuned from the factory. They did a really good job. There's a very good consistency between the lubing on all of the switches. They feel really tight, so there was no need to film them either. So right out of the box, they worked for me, and I think that's fantastic. Now, my friend got me an encoder for this keyboard that I'm going to put in one of the nav cluster slots. I really like encoders. I normally just use them to play, pause, and control volume, but if it's an option that I can have, I'm usually going to take it. And this is what it looks like. This is a typical EC11 encoder. You'll find these on most keyboards, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pins on it. 5 main pins and then 2 kind of stabilizer pins. But this is going to require some soldering. Not a lot, but you should be fairly comfortable with soldering if you're going to attempt this. Now on the PCB, there's only one place with the correct holes for this to be installed into, and that's going to be on the top leftmost slot on the PCB if you're looking at it. But it's very easy to tell because it has all the corresponding holes for all of the pins. So you're going to slot this in from the top of the PCB, 3 pins on top, 2 pins on the bottom, and 2 stabilizers on the side, and you're just going to push it in until you hear a nice click. And then it should be fairly stable in place. And then you're going to flip the PCB over and solder all of the pins. Now right out of the box, the PCB comes pre-flashed to be able to use with VIA. Next, you're going to want to take the bottom of the case and put in the weight. And that's very simple. It just screws in with a couple of screws and you're good to go. Now, my friend also got me the dampeners and foams that go inside of it all. And it comes with the case foam at the bottom that sits between the bottom case and the PCB. And then the plate foam that goes in between the PCB and the plate. I chose to omit the case foam because I wanted a little more sound out of this, but I did use the plate foam. And it's got some very thin cutouts, so peel it away from the backing very carefully. And then just lay it on top of your PCB, making sure everything lines up. There's a big reset button and some spaces that you want to make sure you have some clearance. Then set that aside and pull out your plate and gaskets. Now, when you're putting the gaskets on the plate, it comes with two sets, some thicker ones and some thinner ones. And if you can see here, the thicker ones are going to go on the bottom of the plate and the thinner ones are going to go on top of the plate. And you're going to go ahead and put those on all the tabs here, on the sides, on the bottom. And that's what's going to give you cushioning against the shells of the top and bottom of the case. Now at this point, if you still have some keycaps and switches where your stabs are, go ahead and take them off and put your plate on and align it with the PCB, and then go ahead and use those switches that you had where the stabs were and place those back in to sort of anchor the plate and make sure it doesn't wiggle around while you push in the other switches. Now at this point, I would recommend taking the PCB and the plate assembly out of the case and putting it onto something like a desk mat, something that gives it, that's still soft, but gives it a little bit of reinforcement so that as you're pushing switches through the plate to lock in and into the PCB, you don't accidentally blow out a hot swap socket. And now once all your other switches are in and your keycaps are on, go ahead and test it again. Plug it up, make sure all those keys are firing on your key tester in VIA or QMK, and once that's good to go, go ahead and put the case top back on and screw it in. Now it takes 7 screws to screw the case together, but 2 of the screws are going to be a little bit longer than the other ones, as you can see there. These 2 longer screws will go into the top 2 holes right here and right here. The shorter screws will go into the corners and the bottom of the chin. And finally, put your feet on the back of it. I chose the yellow because I like the little accent of color there, but they also come with white or black as options. And now you should be done and ready to enjoy your AVA Sneakbox. Now, I knew it didn't come with the dedicated right shift, and I thought I'd be fine with that. I never really use right shift, right? As it turns out, yes, I do all the time. I just never think about it. I use it for punctuation a lot. Exclamation points, question marks, just do it so subliminally or just so subconsciously that I just never really thought about it. So I had to remap things and refigure out my key combinations to figure out how to accommodate that right shift. So what I did was I just put the right shift over here. So normally it would be like over here somewhere, but this isn't too far of a travel, and after like a week or so you get used to it and it totally works just fine. So if you're in a right shift dilemma and you really need that right shift, you can just put it somewhere else. And that's how it all looks together. I think the black on white looks fantastic with the Kraken accents, and I love the little novelties, and I am especially like ridiculously proud of this hook for a hand that I use as my alt key. Jokes. But I know what you're thinking. Yeah, whatever, dude. How does it sound? How does it sound? Let's go do a sound test. So final thoughts. I daily drive this keyboard now. It is fantastic. It's got everything I wanted. It looks great. It sounds great. I love that sort of marbly sound that it's got. The linear switches doing great work. The whole aluminum case. Everything is exactly as I wanted it. So thank you, Kurt, for the birthday gift. And thank you, AVA Sneakbox, for a fantastic keyboard. And that about wraps it up for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. And until next time, geek out.